Natasha, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
I'm excited to have you on. I've known you for, not knowing you personally, but knowing of you and the work between each other, and having you come on has been something that I'm like, this. You have a great story, and I know this is going to be a fun convo. So I'm excited to see where this next 25 some odd minutes go for us. So
Let's
before
do
we
it.
get before we get into everything, tell me about what got you into what you're doing today. What inspired you? What motivated you? What's that story? What's that path look like?
So I'm a journalist. That's my background. And 15 years old, I already knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell the stories of other people, and that looked quite ridiculous at that time. Like me being like shy and like all like shaky. At 15, interviewing like there was like a boys band I interviewed, and then there was the scientist guy because I thought like I want to popularize science, and then I thought I want to talk to the government people and explain some policies. Like I it kind of like threw me all over the place, but like the underlying thing that was that I wanted to tell the stories, and I was like, oh, you're cool. People need to know about you, and I would jump from one thing to another, and that's kind of the path throughout the journey. I got really, because I got started really early, I got also really disappointed really early in the world of media. So by the age of 21, probably I had solid media experience working working in the editorial, working in the for like print for print newspaper. And I was like, okay, this world is messed up. We could get more into this if you want. Like, what kind of gave the 21-year-old the impression that the world of media is messed up. There are a number of stories in there, and I like, okay, done. My career is over. I'm not doing it anymore. So it took me all around the world. I went like volunteering in Eastern Europe, volunteering in South America, learning Spanish, traveling, doing all of that, and ended up in a marketing position. I used to work for Mind Valley, if you know of them, like a huge personal development brand. And then they are kind of like, got into the marketing side of telling the stories, and I'm like, okay, this is working. This is a good message. This is a good kind of we were marketing meditations, the qigong, breath work, things like that. I'm like, okay, this is the kind of things I can get behind. So when I was ready to start my own journey, I was like, okay, I think there are a few Lego bricks here that I can combine. I can combine my understanding of the world of media, understanding of the world of personal development, and this is a kind of stories I want to be telling, because that like when there is something like so true in your heart that you know it at 15 years old, this is what I want to be doing it, like you continue doing it, like the calling is keep coming. So even though I gave up the world of media, the calling to be telling the stories of other people was keep on coming, and I just needed to find the right format to do that. And that's what brought me to do now, who help the people like longevity advocates, breathwork teachers, meditation teachers, teachers in like sexuality and sensuality, to tell their stories to the world, like all the things that I really believe in, to help them spread the message. That's a story in a nutshell.
I love it, and you do so well at what you do. I mean, you helped. You always invite some amazing guests to me that I'm like, yep, this is right up my alley. This is what I like to talk to or chat about. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm like, this is going to be a little different for the podcast, but it is a part that's going to help people, when it comes to life and fulfillment, because that's what this podcast is
Mm-hmm.
really, as it's evolved in the last 5 years. It's more about now just how do we help individuals really just get into that level of fulfillment, and there's so many ways
Yeah.
we can do that, right?
Yeah, me and you are on the same mission here, right? To tell the people how to live their life better, right? There are so many areas, from health and nutrition to how do you have a better spiritual connection? How do you live a longer life, et cetera, et cetera. There is like so much coming up right now, and these are the kind of stories I want to be telling.
I love it. And I love that, you had this passion at 15 to do this. And it's like it cultivated into different things, and you had something show up, and I love to hear at least one story of why media is so messed up. I think there's a lot of reasons, but there's, you're in the world. I'm just a bystander, but it's one of the
Mm-hmm.
things where, like, I think in life sometimes you get these moments where it's like the universe, God, or just life in general, whatever you want to call it, but it's like it sets something there to kind of pivot you and get you to
Mm-hmm.
move, right? And I think sometimes when you have something like that, there's always at least like little signs were showing up along the way, and we just kept missing it. And then eventually you get to that area where you're just like, okay, I'm tired of this. I am done. It was that
Mm-hmm.
kind of your like, was that the process to where it's like you just got to
No,
the frustrated and
no.
like, I'm done? No.
No, so yeah, one of it's a really interesting conversation on, like, do you have to get hit hard in the face in order to kind of get on a path, or can you gradually get there? So unlike many people, for me, it's a gradual path, right? And I believe it can be this way. I believe it, it doesn't have to hit you in the face. So one of my own teachers, coincidentally, one of my former boss, Vishen Lakiani, he talks about this theory, like Japanese philosophy called Kensho and Satori, right? Where one is where life just shows you the way, right? Where you need to go, and if you get it, you just progress. You progress gradually, and if you don't, it's like, okay, here you go. Here is your, I don't know. Here is your accident. Here is your, like, dark night of the soul. Here is your breakout moment where, like, where you have no choice but to change your ways. So that was not my story. I think because I started early, I also kind of, like, caught the direction really early. As I said, at the 21 years old, I was like, no, not doing this. So I was just like, went on exploring, and then just went on combining the pieces.
I love it. And I agree with that 100%. It's one of those things where in the world, if we're aware, right, if we're staying in that center of awareness and the dance of life, as I like to call it, then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden you get guided beautifully. And
Yes.
I won't say you're not going to be stressed out or you're going to have moments. It's just human, but it just shows you that way and you just trust it. Or you
Yes.
let the mind take over and
Mm-hmm.
you think you know better, or this is where it should go, or this is where it should be, or all these different constructs that we develop and get conditioned in sometimes in ways. And then that creates the turbulence. That creates
Yeah.
that dark night of the soul.
I think in my case, it's really helpful that, uh, that I was doing all of it in a young age. Like, I felt the calling of the passion at a young age. So there was, not really even that much time to get conditioned. I just, like, I just followed the passion. And when the passion was not working out, like, I didn't do it that much through the mind, rather than through the passion. And, and I didn't really have an example of, like, how it should be. So there was pretty much making it all as I go.
And I think this is something I talk to a lot of clients about. I try to get them back to that, right? Because it's all
Mm-hmm.
about, I work with a lot of business owners, and it's one of
Yeah.
those things that they're always like, well, this is where I need to be, or this is where I have to go, or this is what I should do. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm always like, no, what excites you? What wakes you up? What are you excited to
Right.
do? Well, I have to
Yeah.
do marketing. Marketing has to be like this. No, 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 no. What marketing, what do you like to do from a marketing standpoint
Oh,
that you
yes.
enjoy, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that's a solid point. I want to really emphasize that for the listeners, because it's when you follow that passion, it's the path that's going to guide you, and that's the path of least resistance. You're not going to have as much
Mm-hmm.
resistance there. And I can go on about that, but I love that how you at that age, and I think
Yeah.
at the time too, you didn't have that influence, right? Because like when I wanted to become a chiropractor, I
Yeah.
was like, I'm going to take over the world. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do all these things. I didn't have the conditioning and constructs
Mm-hmm.
of the chiropractic world. And it wasn't until, a few years in when I started, I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, no, this is how it should be. This is what we should do
Oh, this is
here.
how it's played, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
5 years of like, even though I was financially successful, it was one of
Mm-hmm.
those things like, no, this isn't me. I'm not excited. I'm not enjoying this. There's something wrong here. And then,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like all the listeners, don't do what I did. Just follow the passion. It makes it a lot easier.
I'm
Um,
having experience of this, similar experience right now, as I became a mama a year ago, and I still have my business, I still have my employees, so that's like a huge responsibility to carry along or along the motherhood journey. So there are things that I cannot avoid doing both in motherhood and in business. But then when I've about few months back, maybe like 2-3 months back, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to kind of feel it again. I'm starting to kind of feel passion towards creating something in the world again. So I was like, okay, where is like where would my energy go? Because this is again the moment where I can follow the passion instead of thinking like what do I have to do. I kind of semi-automated my business when I became a mom. So that kind of gave me now a freedom of like, okay, what are the things that if I'm to go back to it, if I'm to go back to business and being a business owner, what are the things that I want to do? What are the things that inspire me? And that's what got me on my current path of exploration.
I love it. So tell me a little bit. I mean, congratulations. First off, I know we were talking a little bit about our kiddos. Our kids are very close in age, and it's one of those things where, I don't like the word balance because I don't want to say, somebody will ask you, how do you balance it all? And I don't. That's what I'm saying. There's no balance is it's a word that we should like work-life balance. I'm like, that should not be. That doesn't happen in life. Life doesn't. Nature doesn't balance itself. Balance things. It adapts to things, right?
It also goes through seasons.
Yes, exactly. I love that. And so let's talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, your journey with this. Like, how are you, for moms, because I do have moms who are stay-at-home moms and they have online businesses and things like that. How do you adapt to this process? Because motherhood it's a beast in its own. How do you do it all?
How am I doing it all? I have a wonderful team to rely on. Oh my God, this is the most difficult question of all because I don't know. I one thing I haven't done is like really process it all to put some word. I take it day by day.
Awesome. Well, that's great.
A huge help. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Go for it.
No. Go ahead. You were saying day by day.
A huge help to it was figuring out like a solid piece before becoming a mom, and like one of the most solid piece like for business survival and to be able to keep having to keep having the job spaces for my team is to figure out the client acquisition piece. Right. So that's that was the hugest one of all. And that one was actually taking a little bit of kind of like of my own advice and doing what I do for my clients. So for my clients, we take them on the podcast tours, on media tours and things like that. So, so their like online presence is not really dependent on, turning out the content every day. And that's what I used to do before I became a mom. I used to be like, Instagram, here I am doing stuff, go buy things for me. And then because before I became a mom, I wrote some solid evergreen content, created some podcast interviews, created some evergreen kind of content where people can discover me. And that kind of fed the client, like incoming requests from the clients for my agency for a good year and a half. We even doubled our revenue in that year while I was a mom, and now I have energy again to go back and to explore. So that was a huge piece to doing it all.
I love it. No, and you bring up a lot of things, and the reason why I asked that question too is because my wife's a stay-at-home mom, and I have my coaching business that I do, podcast, eventually going to write a book again. So there's a lot of things I have on my hands, but having a kiddo, what it did for me was I had to really prioritize what really I enjoy. Like it forced me, because before I like to do a lot of things. I'm just that I have a lot of energy.
You're a yes man.
Yes, I am the one I can take on a lot, and I love it. The busier I am, the better I am. So, but having a kiddo, I have to take time for my wife to give her breaks. So not to say breaks, because it's me being with my daughter also, but. So I want to make sure I clarify that. But at the same token, though, it's like I need to have my time with my daughter. I have to still take time for myself, mentally, mental space, and also physically and health. I also have to make sure I have time for this business. I'm starting my chiropractic business in 3 days from now, from this recording. So like I'm doing all these different things, and it's like one of those things like I have to really, and this is prioritize the what really matters that I enjoy and that I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
whatever else. You're like, there's putting things on automatic processes, so that way I don't even have automation, so I don't have to worry about a lot of that. But then it's just like the big thing for me has always been prioritize, because I don't have now. Let's say I could do 3 hours of research to create a beautiful workshop, or 4 hours of research. I get maybe a half hour a day now to be able to do research, and I'm going, okay, I got to get a little bit quicker. Thankfully, something called AI came out, which saves me so much time now. I mean, I can do
That was a
research.
huge lifesaver because while I was a mom, my team was running like our biggest campaign of all time, uh, coincidentally. And I don't know how we would have done it without like AI. Like AI came up really like halfway through and it kind of saved it. And we get our amazing results out of it. Like that's one where we got like a client on a 4 bestseller lists for one book. And but yeah, AI was huge help in there. And it was
It's
also really
been
well timed.
it was because like even for me with our daughter, we were kind of like
Yeah.
I couldn't do as much as I wanted to, and I'm like I need to figure something out. I can't. My wife's like, why are you spending so much time doing this? I'm like, I don't know. I need to do it. I'm like I'm making my podcast and I take reels from it, and it takes some time. I like doing that type of process, and I could delegate it off. I have no problem doing that. But I was like, but I enjoy doing this. This is fun for me. It's like I'm creating
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and then eventually AI, I'm like came out with some new programs, and I'm going, all right, enough's enough. I'm like, this is going to save me a ton of time. Now I just have to pick which ones I like, clean them up a little, and I'm done. And so like
Mm-hmm.
just the saving of that, it's been a blessing. So I know it has been for you and whatnot. Has there any what else has like for you the being a mom with that whole life, because we talked about the business side personally, how do you know is it how do you adapt to that whole journey? Is it the same thing like I'm kind of sharing, or you have your own, is it a little different experience?
You mean the personal side
Like kind of
for
like what I
being?
was kind of sharing about like how you have to, you kind of talked about the work side where it's like you have things on automatic, you have a team, and then it's just you have picking what you
Mm-hmm.
like to do. Personally, is it also that kind of a balance too? Like did you have to build in structures, some systems in your, like it's kind of like personally is the same thing as running the business, right? It's just you do it on a
Yeah.
personal level, like
Yeah.
those kind of things.
Um, I'm in the moment when I'm not so happy with with how it goes. Being really frank, so you're like there is no balance. So yeah, there is very little balance. I think before they turn to something or something like this, right? For a mom. So I think one thing I told myself when I got pregnant as well, it was like there are going to be seasons, and the only thing about seasons is it will pass. Right. So right now is like a bad sleep season, and everyone, lots of things, my workouts and self-care included, like goes out of the window. And yeah, that's the honest truth. But I also know that there were seasons already when that was okay, and we were on a good we were on a good schedule, and there is going to be season again when I'll have a little bit more time back for me. So yeah, I guess that's a philosophy.
No, it's a great mindset to have, because a lot of times, parents, I mean, my background, I'm a pediatric chiro, so I've worked with hundreds of moms and hearing a
Mm-hmm.
variety of different stories. And I've seen the struggles, I've seen the super mom syndrome, I've seen a gazillion different things. And it's one of the things where what you just shared is something I would always tell them, because it's like, I'm like, oh, I'm not getting sleep. I'm like, you'll get sleep again. Oh, and doomsday glory. And I'm like, it will come. Like, it's just, this is where they are. Every child's different. Some sleep well, some don't. My daughter's not the greatest sleeper. I wasn't a great sleeper. So I had a
Yeah.
feeling if she's going to take after me, then we're in trouble, and we're there. But
Yeah, I'm healthy. She's healthy. That's the sun
that's
is out. We like there's gonna be a better day, basically.
it takes life. I don't know about for you, but I know for me with my daughter, it just makes like the simplicity of life you just enjoy more. Like you're just saying, the sun's
Mm-hmm.
out. Great. We can go to the park. We can go
Yeah,
play. We can do
yeah.
this.
That's yeah. The small things. So like, okay, that makes our day. We're gonna make our day around this. That's amazing.
I love it. And so, what are some things that you can share for the listeners
Yep.
about if they're a mom, how to like, or just in general, juggling? And I'm trying not to use the word balance. It's really hard. It's so easy to say.
Mm-hmm.
But what are three things that you've depended on? Because you have what you've shared, and which I love, is the
Yeah.
philosophy side of it, right? You just have that
Yeah.
great vision of it. You're just like, hey, this is what it is. This is how we go through it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that alone is a beautiful, there's no resistance there.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of the emotional toll, the tolls. Probably not. I know for me, I mean, as much as I do, I see it that way too. It's like every once in a while it gets to me, I'm like, all right, today I'm getting a little bothered. I got to put this in check. I don't like the way I'm feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Definitely.
what are some tips that top of your head that you can share to some moms or just in general for
Yeah.
the listeners?
Yeah, for the balance, right? So one thing is we talked about it, right? The going where the energy goes. So it's like there is work that there are parts of my work that gives me energy instead of taking it. There are parts of the momhood that give me energy instead of taking it. There are other parts which I cannot avoid, but consciously dedicating more of it to the time where I gonna get back as well, like I gonna get much more. Like I'm also a very energetic person. I gonna get energy from taking her out on a walk, and that's gonna be like point for her, point for me. So that's a huge one. And another really cool one was a realization of knowing my strength and knowing that that uh, they say that the parenting completely changes who you are and your life and so on, and I was like really afraid of that. I was really afraid of that I'm not gonna be myself, and myself is what I know the best. I know the best where I'm at the best at. I know my strength. I know my I know like the kind of things that I'm good at. And then the best realization was after having a child, I was like, oh my God, thanks God, I'm still myself. I'm still good at, making connections. So, I can invite people over. I'm still really good and, and getting energy from just like random places, like, like standing out in the sun for a little bit. So I'm still myself, and I still can use my strong points in it. And so, it doesn't have to be parenting. It doesn't have to be motherhood. It's whatever a big challenging project that like, sucking energy, right? Like there are things that you are best at. There are like, understanding of yourself. Maybe your strong side is research. Maybe your strong side is going deep. That's my husband, right? He like his strong side is really like drilling down to the core of thing. And that's that's a strong suit that he relies on, and whatever like a big undertaking he takes. Mine is in making connection and connecting with people and also drawing energy from that. So that's like that's a second point that I think is really helpful in balancing it all, is like knowing thyself and knowing how, not as just like how is it done, but like how I can do it, what strong points I can play on to get from where I am to where I want to be.
I love that, and I think that second point's really critical because it's the energy point.
Mhm.
Do you practice grounding at all? So you said you sit out in stand in the sun. Do you ground
I
with it
live in
also?
Ibiza, but we walk on
Oh,
the beach
okay, yeah,
every
never mind.
other day. I don't practice grounding. That's a lie.
You live grounding. You're grounding
Yes.
all the time. I mean,
Yes.
sand is such a great conductor for Earth's energy. So, I would always tell patients if they're going to the beach, I'm like, go put your sand and plant your feet in there and bury them and just lay there in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, why? I'm like, do you know how I go? I would do that for hours if I could. I used to do it every time I go to a beach. So,
Mm-hmm.
but no, you bring up some good things here. And again, it's all about that energy and knowing where you can get. Like for me, I have to. It's the walks outside, as simple as it is. Taking my daughter
Yes.
for a nice, almost mile walk. I have my dog with me, and he loves it.
Oh,
She
I
gets
wish we had a
fresh
dog.
air. Ah, yes, they're fun. The only thing my dog does is he holds us back from traveling. So I'm like, because he doesn't like being in a car. So I'm like, that's fine, right? 'Tis the season. So we traveled a lot
Mm-hmm.
beforehand. We had kids
Yeah.
and everything, and now all of a sudden
Yeah.
we're like, it's fine. We'll get back to traveling eventually when the time's right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. I can be
Um,
sure.
but it's one of those things where but I love how you bring up those concepts for the listeners. Again, it's that thing about what gives you that energy, what helps you reset, what helps you to just, what, like, even with projects, if you take on projects, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
things that you enjoy, you feel on
Yeah.
a high afterwards, correct?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Like, when I have my 2 hours a day, sometimes when, I have someone babysitting and I'm like, I get to get down to the things that I'm enjoying. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. I come back with like energy to bring back in. And yeah, I think another thing that I would share is, how often people say like, oh, if you went back to your 12-year-old self, to like your younger self, what are the things that you would tell them? What are the things that you would teach them about life? Da, 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 da. I have this concept reverse. I'm like, I feel like I can take the most wisdom from my young self, from my like this state that we talked about, the 15 years old, when I didn't have the concept of how things should be, when I literally just followed the passion and, I unfortunately don't have the diaries back from then. I used to write a lot of diaries, like that would have been gold. But just kind of going into that state and remembering the kind of things that used to excite me and the kind of things that like how I would make choices and so on. Like I think that's a huge source of strength, going back to your original state.
I agree 100%. People always ask me, like, especially with clients, they're like, what is, looking back, where do what's the purpose? What are you trying to do? And I say, I'm always trying to take you back to your 3, 4 year old self.
Well,
And that,
interesting.
and here's the reason why, because they'll look at me, and especially I'm telling this to a business owner, and they're like,
Yeah,
very, driver, left analytical, logical,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. And they're like, that doesn't make sense. I said, well, hold on, let me explain, then you'll understand. And it'll tie into what you were talking about with passion.
yeah.
Because I said at the age 3, 4, the brain is at its peak state from imagination.
Mm,
And what you do is at that time from a 3, 4 year old is you just play with whatever you're interested in, you love to do. And if you ever look
mm-hmm.
at a 3, 4 year old and you sit back in a state of awareness, you can feel the energy, it's palpable. And you can watch them and you'll see they get excited. They do, that's where the tea parties come in and all that other stuff. And they go through this elaborate, I'm like, I love where my daughter is. I love every stage
Yeah,
she's at, but I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, I cannot wait for that stage. I am going to
yeah.
go nuts with her on it because I'm a big
Mm,
kid. So I love to do that.
mm.
But imagine if we lived our lives in that state and what we can learn from, what it can do for us overall.
I
Um,
once wrote an article about adulting. It was a few years back. It was maybe like in my late 20s, and that was the time when everyone around started talking about the boring side of adulting. They're like, oh, you're doing your taxes. That's adulting. Or you're going to doctors now. That's adulting. And I wrote an article. I can still find it somewhere published. Uh, about that adulting is like it's insanely fun. It's you get to do the same tea party, but instead of playing it out with the plastic cups and and doing it with your dolls, you can organize a community event where you gather like the people that you want to have together, instead of like I used to do the puppet concerts. Instead of doing that, like I would that stage, that age at late 20s, I would I would actually put a creative nights and invite musicians and poetry readers and so on, and organize this kind of thing. Like you get to do in adulting, you get to do all the same kind of things that you played in your imagination, but now you have real tools. Yeah, sure, you have to you also do the taxes and go to doctors and so on, but like that's not the core of it. Like if it's the core of your adulting, that's really sad. No, like you have resources, recognition. No, your society recognize you as a full-on adult, and and you have your smarts, your brains, and so on to like create in a real life. Like how cool is that? So that was an article that I wrote a way back, and I still believe in it. So it's adulting is fun.
it is, and again, 3, 4 year old state, right? We never get bored of the same thing over and over. We can watch the same movie 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we don't let our mind state that this is the experience of what it should be. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
and I can talk about that on and on with you with that, and that's something that I'm
Mm.
very passionate about with. But yeah, one last question I have for you is, what has so far has been the greatest lesson, and that your is your daughter correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. What's the greatest lesson that you learned from in the time that you've been a parent?
Pressure. The one thing. Um, I need to think for a moment. It's got to be about joy, right? Kids, kids teach us joy, and kids teach us this. You know how impressive it is, right? Like she doesn't hold grudges, right? She doesn't. She is unsatisfied in the moment, and she is having like the worst cry ever. But then it switches. Now she's having fun, and like I'd feel like if it was an adult person, right? If it was an adult person that I willingly or unwillingly taken through this much of suffering, whatever, of taking away their favorite toy or something like this, like they would be like grumpy with me all day. They're like, today in the morning, you did this, oh, that was uncool, now my whole day is ruined. Da, da, da. Like, her day is never ruined. She wasn't happy, now things are good, and now she's entertained, and now she is whatever, playing with a dog or something, and she's happy. She forgotten all about it and moves on, and she just like passes those emotions through and stay in the moment with whatever it is she's feeling, joy or anger or frustration or happiness. And that's was really like a big aha moment for me.
I couldn't agree more. It's amazing to see them always in the present, and always, one thing my daughter does is she just always moves forward. So she'll fall off the slide, cry,
Mm-hmm.
we calm her down, get her back to normal, and she wants to go right back up. And I'm like, I love that about her.
Mm.
Um, Real quick, how can people find you, follow you, and all the great work that you do?
So I after like 18 months of being absent from the online world, I got inspired again. I got back on Instagram, and that's a place where I'm inspired to create right now. So it's Natasha Zo _, and I'm doing 100 Reels challenge right now. Exactly what inspires me at the moment. I didn't want to touch social media for 18 months of my life, and it was fine. The business still existed, but now I'm inspired, and now I'm exploring the reels as a tool, as a space for creativity. So if the podcast comes out anytime in the next 2 months, I'm still going to be doing my 100 reels challenge. So you can come to Natasha Zo _ Instagram and check out how my reels are doing.
Awesome. Well, you'll get a couple from me from this, so that'll help you a little bit.
Definitely. Definitely.
Well, Natasha, this was a blast chatting with you. Glad to dive in and hear your story and what you shared. I want to thank you for all that you do. You are helping out the world with your business and how you help expand. You have some amazing guests that you bring to us, and we appreciate it because they've always turned out to be amazing. I enjoy every
Always
single
a pleasure.
conversation.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
have fun with your little one, and appreciate you taking time to be on the show.
Thank you so much.
That's it for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to y'all next time.